Rich billionaire fakes disability to test his wife. What happened next will shock you. They said true love could overcome anything, disaster, illness, even the test of time. But what if the greatest test of all was a deliberate deception? Thomas Winston, a handsome billionaire mogul with everything to lose, devises a shocking plan to fake a debilitating injury. His sole purpose? To uncover the truth about his wife's heart. As hushed whispers ripple through high society and hidden motives creep to the surface, the stakes rise beyond anything he ever imagined. Will love stand firm under the weight of deceit, or shatter once the truth emerges? Brace yourself. This tangled web of secrets is about to unravel. Thomas Winston was never just an ordinary billionaire. Yes, he had the lavish penthouse overlooking Central Park in New York City, a fleet of luxury vehicles, and a super yacht docked in the south of France. But beneath the polished veneer of his high-profile life lay a lonely, tormented soul. Born into wealth and named the heir to Winston Gable, a sprawling conglomerate dealing in real estate, technology, and luxury hospitality, Thomas grew up under constant scrutiny. The demands of the business world and the shadow of a controlling father had shaped him into a guarded man. From a young age, Thomas was taught to trust no one. His late father, Gregory Winston, a shrewd businessman, often reminded him that people would only love him for his fortune. And so, the higher Thomas climbed in net worth and influence, the more suspicious he became of others' motives. It didn't help that he'd watched relatives squabble over money, forging alliances, and then betraying one another when advantageous. The Winstons, despite their philanthropic public image, weren't known for unity within the family. Thomas found a fleeting sense of refuge in philanthropic endeavors. Through a partnership with Michael Bloomberg, a name recognized across the globe, and the help of a private banker named Robert Townsend, Thomas organized charity galas, educational programs, and medical missions overseas. The world lauded his generosity. Still, he could never quite shake the cynicism that echoed in his father's stern warnings. Then Amelia came into his life, like a dazzling meteor lighting up a moonless sky. They met at a charity ball in London. Amelia Bennett was an elegant, soft-spoken art curator from a modest background. Working at the renowned Tate Modern, she'd been invited to discuss a partnership for Thomas's philanthropic foundation, hoping to secure funds for a traveling exhibit of contemporary artists. She was polite, knowledgeable, and refreshingly authentic. Unlike the other attendees that night, socialites in shimmering gowns, vying for Thomas's attention, Amelia seemed almost oblivious to his wealth and status. Captivated, Thomas took her aside to a quieter terrace. The fresh night air carried a faint whiff of roses and the bustle of the city below. They spoke for hours, not about business or money, but about life, art, and their shared dreams for a better world. In Amelia's eyes, Thomas detected no trace of calculating greed, just a genuine warmth he found disarmingly sincere. Their courtship unfurled quickly, drawing both awe and envy from society onlookers. He flew her to New York, introduced her to the Winston estate, and let her see behind the scenes of his demanding role at Winston Gable. She, in turn, took him through London's quieter streets, guiding him into tucked-away art galleries and jazz clubs. Despite the contrasts in their upbringing, they laughed, confided, and found themselves gradually entwined in a deep emotional bond. When he proposed, she said yes without hesitation, her eyes brimming with tears of joy. The wedding took place in an intimate ceremony in the south of France, far from paparazzi intrusion. On a pristine cliffside estate overlooking the azure waters of the Mediterranean, they exchanged vows. The brilliance of the sun, the fragrance of lavender, and the joyous applause of close friends and relatives colored the moment with surreal perfection. But in the weeks and months that followed, Thomas couldn't quite silence the lingering voice of doubt. He wrestled with the question, did she truly love him for who he was, or was it all because he was a billionaire Winston, heir to a global empire? His father's words echoed in his head. "Son, your heart is vulnerable. Test it or risk losing everything." Gregory Winston was long gone now, succumbing to a heart attack a year before Thomas met Amelia, but his warnings haunted Thomas like a restless ghost. While Amelia had shown no signs of greed, the fear of betrayal gnawed at him until eventually he devised a plan, an outrageous, cunning plan. If he could orchestrate a scenario so dire that he lost the very thing that made him powerful, his ability to command his empire, he might confirm whether Amelia's commitment was genuine. Money was one thing, but losing his health, his vitality, and perhaps even his ability to provide could prove an ultimate test. He obsessed over the details in secret, confiding only in his most trusted confidant, his personal assistant, Susan Lee, someone who had been with him for over a decade and sworn to unwavering loyalty. Susan's shock was palpable when he first unveiled his scheme. "Thomas, are you sure this is the right approach?" she'd asked, her brow furrowed. "It could destroy her trust in you. It could destroy your marriage." He'd sighed, shoulders sagging. "I know, Susan. But if Amelia is the one, she'll stand by me through the worst, right? And if not, better to find out now than—" Thomas paused, almost unable to continue. A wave of guilt crashed through him, yet he forced himself to keep going. "I have to do this." Susan, for all her reservations, nodded, resigned to her role in her employer's life. She helped him strategize the ruse to the last detail. It would start with a staged car accident on a remote highway. A few bribed staff from Winston Gable's security detail would ensure the plan played out convincingly. The next step, a hospital stay with doctors who owed Thomas favors, who would discreetly confirm a partially paralyzing spinal injury. Then the heartbreak for Amelia and the day-to-day trials of caring for a husband who could no longer walk. The only question that loomed: could Thomas truly stomach the heartbreak he was about to inflict on the woman he claimed to love? The day dawned cool and grey, with an unsettling stillness in the Manhattan air. Thomas rose early, carefully instructing Susan on the final logistics of the operation. He left his penthouse without saying goodbye to Amelia, offering only a fleeting kiss on her cheek while she was still half asleep. He told her he had an early meeting in the outskirts of the city, an excuse to vanish into the elaborate ruse. Amelia, used to his busy schedule, offered a soft smile. "Drive safely, Thomas. I'll see you tonight." Her voice, gentle with care, almost made him waver. But with his father's caution ringing in his mind, he steeled himself and left. The Winston security team arranged for the accident along a deserted stretch of highway outside the city. 2 drivers loyal to Thomas would block the road momentarily, ensuring minimal traffic. Another accomplice would roll a small vehicle into Thomas's Bentley, orchestrated at slow speed but appearing far more severe. Perfect angles. Perfect illusions. Thomas would then be transported to a private hospital, one owned by Winston Gable, with staff thoroughly briefed to play along. Everything happened with choreographed precision. The actual collision was mild enough not to truly injure Thomas, but dramatic enough to crumble the front of his Bentley and deploy the airbags. Within minutes, an ambulance arrived. By the time Thomas was wheeled into the emergency room, the cover story had already spread to all relevant channels. No one outside the inner circle doubted its authenticity. Susan was by Amelia's side when she received the devastating call. Amelia's reaction was immediate hysteria. She dropped her phone, tears welling up as her mind struggled to process. She begged Susan for more information. Was Thomas alive? Was he conscious? Susan kept her responses measured, feigning shock. "I'm so sorry, Amelia. We're doing everything we can." Through the swirl of chaos, Amelia rushed to the hospital, her heart pounding. She found Thomas lying limp in a hospital bed, eyes fluttering open. The doctors informed her, with somber gravity, that he had a severe spinal injury, one likely to leave him partially paralyzed from the waist down. Thomas gazed at her, summoning tears of anguish at the right moments. She clasped his hand, sobbing quietly. In that moment, he felt a pang of guilt, so profound he almost confessed. Yet he remained silent, letting the narrative unfold. Over the next few days, he was confined to a private suite, attended by round-the-clock nurses and physiotherapists. After thorough tests, the specialists broke the news to Amelia. There was hope for a recovery, but the road would be long and uncertain. For now, Thomas would need a wheelchair and extensive care at home. Amelia took it in with composed determination. "I'll be here every step of the way," she promised, her voice trembling but resolute. She refused to leave the hospital room for the first 2 nights, sitting vigil beside him, dozing on an uncomfortable chair. Thomas watched her unwavering dedication with astonishment. Here she was, his supposedly tested wife, exhausting herself, shedding tears, brushing aside her own needs for his. Surely, he thought, this must prove her love, but it was only the beginning of his scheme, and he had to play it through. After a week in the hospital, the doctors discharged Thomas with instructions for intense physical therapy, daily medication, and constant monitoring. Back in the penthouse, Amelia turned their marble-floored palace into an impromptu medical facility. She arranged for a hospital bed in the master bedroom, fitted ramps at doorways for the wheelchair, and reorganized the entire house staff schedule to ensure Thomas's every need was met. The staff at Winston Gable offered unending support, sending well wishes, flowers, and gourmet meals daily. Investors and board members hammered Thomas's phone with messages of concern, all answered politely by Amelia or Susan. The media, meanwhile, had no shortage of speculation. Headlines across financial tabloids read, "Billionaire heir injured in tragic accident, future of empire uncertain." The empire, of course, was still in capable hands, Thomas's, ironically. Even from his wheelchair he could orchestrate deals and sign documents, though he feigned difficulty with the simplest tasks. From time to time, he deliberately refused to attend teleconferences, letting rumors swirl about his compromised state of mind. The real test was seeing how Amelia handled the new dynamic, her once powerful, robust husband, now feigning helplessness. And handle it she did. Amelia went above and beyond. She refused to hire a private nurse, insisting she could manage. Morning and night, she helped him bathe, dressed him, wheeled him around the penthouse, took care of his therapy appointments, supervised his medication, and remained the pillar of emotional support. Even though her own world was in upheaval, she'd taken a leave from her job at a prestigious New York gallery. She rarely complained. Thomas observed her carefully. Each day, new guilt gnawed at him. He'd wake to find her gently massaging his legs, tears sometimes brimming in her eyes as she prayed for recovery. The staff members whispered among themselves about Amelia's devotion. "She's an angel," he heard the head housekeeper say once. "Maybe, just maybe, I should end this," Thomas considered. Yet he held out, telling himself he needed absolute certainty. But as the days became weeks, cracks began to form in Amelia's resilience. Late at night, when she thought Thomas was asleep, she'd slump in an armchair by the window, head in her hands. He'd see her shoulders shaking as she sobbed quietly, maybe from exhaustion or heartbreak, or the unimaginable pressure of caring for him. The moment stung him deeply. His love for her was real. Watching her suffer under a lie of his making filled him with shame, but he forced himself to remain stoic. While Amelia remained steadfast, not everyone was so generous. Members of high society, business rivals, even certain Winston relatives began swirling rumors. Where money was involved, vultures were never far behind. Some board members at Winston Gable exploited the uncertainty to jostle for power. They whispered that Thomas was now incompetent. If Amelia were a gold digger, perhaps she'd push for her husband to relinquish his shares, or maybe even sell them off for a quick fortune. Among the suspicious few was Edgar Winston, Thomas's estranged cousin, who'd once vied for leadership in the company. Known for his brash arrogance, Edgar had always disliked Amelia, claiming she'd married Thomas for the Winston name. One evening, Edgar showed up unannounced at Thomas's penthouse, bearing a bouquet of flowers and a self-satisfied smirk. Amelia hesitated, but not wanting to appear rude, she let him in. "You look tired," he remarked, sweeping his gaze over her. "I came to see Thomas. Is he well enough for visitors?" She forced a polite smile. "He's resting, but I'm sure he'll be glad to see you." Edgar made his way into the living room, where Thomas was parked in his wheelchair, gazing out at the sunset over Central Park. Thomas feigned difficulty turning around, letting Amelia wheel him. "Well, well, cousin," Edgar drawled. "I heard the news. Tragic business. The board is worried about the future. But I have to say, you picked quite a caretaker." Thomas's jaw clenched, but he kept his composure. "Amelia's been wonderful," he said evenly. "We're taking it one day at a time." "Oh, I bet." Edgar's smile held a hint of malice. He cast a sideways glance at Amelia. Caretaker by day, Winston heiress by night. Amelia stiffened but said nothing. It was the first time she'd encountered such open hostility from Thomas's family. As she left to retrieve refreshments, she heard Edgar continue, "The board is calling a meeting. They want to discuss your capacity to lead. Might be a good time to pass the reins to someone else." Thomas tensed. This had been part of the plan, inadvertently, yet the reality of it stung. Faking disability and incapacitation threatened to unravel his control over the empire. He'd assumed he could discreetly juggle the facade, but the board's concerns were real. If they forced his hand, Winston Gable could be snatched out of his control, a scenario he had not fully accounted for. As Amelia returned, Edgar directed an oily smile at her. "My dear, taking care of an invalid husband can't be easy," he said. "If you need help, financial or otherwise, you know where to find me." She swallowed, glaring at him. "Thomas isn't an invalid. He's my husband. I suggest you watch your words." Her swift defense took Edgar by surprise. He laughed, a low, condescending chuckle, and rose to his feet. "Well, I'll let you two lovebirds get some rest." He strode out, leaving a cloud of tension behind him. Thomas looked at Amelia, forcing an expression of regret. "I'm sorry you had to deal with that." She waved it off, then placed her hands gently on his shoulders. "You have nothing to apologize for. We'll get through this, together." With every display of her loyalty, Thomas's guilt soared. He knew that continuing the charade had real consequences, both for his marriage and for the empire he was sworn to lead. In times of crisis, the past has a way of resurfacing. For Amelia, that past came in the form of Marcus Anderson, a charismatic painter, and her former university boyfriend, who'd just arrived in New York for an upcoming exhibit. Amelia hadn't spoken to Marcus in years, but he suddenly reached out, claiming he'd heard about Thomas's accident and wanted to express his condolences. At first, Amelia was hesitant to meet him. She was overwhelmed by her responsibilities at home and suspicious of old acquaintances showing up during their hardship. But Marcus was persistent, and in a moment of nostalgia, Amelia agreed to meet for coffee at a quiet midtown cafe, explaining to Thomas that she needed just 1 hour away from the penthouse. Thomas, feigning exhaustion, told her he'd be fine. Secretly, he seethed with curiosity. He'd vaguely known about Marcus, the ex-boyfriend who'd left heartbreak in his wake. For Thomas, the timing felt too convenient. Is he back because Amelia might be vulnerable? Is this the true test of her fidelity? In a swirl of conflicting emotions, Thomas decided to have Susan discreetly follow Amelia. If nothing else, it would soothe the paranoid voice in his head, telling him this might be the moment Amelia's loyalty cracked. At the cafe, Amelia found Marcus perched at a corner table, wearing a stylish turtleneck, a paint-speckled coat thrown over the chair. He rose to greet her, smiling warmly. "It's so good to see you, Amelia," he said, voice dipped in concern. "I'm sorry to hear about Thomas's accident. How are you holding up?" She forced a brave smile. "It's been hard, but I'm managing." As they talked, Amelia recounted the horrors of the past month, detailing Thomas's daily needs, the board's looming concerns, and the strain it placed on her. She didn't share the deeper toll on her own heart, but Marcus could read it in her eyes. He reached across the table to grasp her hand gently. She pulled away after a moment, uneasy at the gesture. "I want you to know I'm here for you," Marcus offered. "I never stopped caring about your well-being. Remember when we—" She cut him off, a hint of steel in her voice. "Marcus, that was a lifetime ago. I appreciate your concern, but let's not dwell on the past." Still, he pressed on, eyes flickering with regret. "I made mistakes. I left for that artist's residency in Paris and got caught up in chasing my career. I never properly apologized." Amelia sighed, the old wound surfacing. "That's done, Marcus. I've moved on. I'm married now." "To a man who might never walk again," Marcus interrupted gently, a trace of sadness in his tone. Her eyes flashed. "Don't pity him. He's stronger than you realize." Marcus leaned back, raising his hands defensively. "Hey, I respect him. I only want you to know that if life gets too heavy, if you ever need a shoulder, I'm here. No strings attached." She fell silent. The barista set down 2 cappuccinos. Amelia sipped hers, mind whirling. She felt uneasy, not wanting to betray Thomas's trust by even entertaining an old flame. But there was also a small part of her that ached for an outlet to vent her fears, something she felt she couldn't do around Thomas. She had to be strong for him. The dilemma weighed on her, and she wondered if she was being tested, or if fate was offering a friend exactly when she needed one. Unbeknownst to her, Susan watched from a nearby table, noting every tense gesture and word exchanged. When Amelia finally rose and said goodbye, Marcus insisted on walking her to her car. With a lingering glance, he promised to check in on her, leaving Amelia with a swirl of unresolved emotions. Back at the penthouse, Thomas watched Amelia carefully as she returned, her subdued expression, the faint flush on her cheeks. "How was coffee?" he asked. She forced a small smile. "It was fine. I needed a break from everything." Thomas nodded. "And who did you meet?" She hesitated. He could see the conflict in her eyes. She was reluctant to admit she met her ex. Finally she spoke. "An old friend, Marcus. He's in town for an exhibit." His stomach twisted. "An old friend," he repeated. "Right." She caught the edge in his voice and crossed to him, brushing a hand over his hair. "Thomas, there's nothing to worry about. I'm not hiding anything from you." He forced a smile, weighed down by the knowledge that he was the one with secrets, spinning a web that was growing more tangled by the day. As days turned into weeks, the strain on Amelia escalated. She juggled her duties as caregiver, dealt with suspicious relatives like Edgar, and occasionally tried to steal moments for herself, brief escapes that usually ended with her returning to the penthouse, feeling guilty for leaving Thomas alone. She kept her resolve strong, but it was evident she was growing weary. Simultaneously, Winston Gable's board of directors grew restless. They scheduled an emergency meeting, demanding Thomas's physical presence. The day of the meeting, Susan helped Thomas prepare to attend in his wheelchair, out of necessity, but also to underscore his condition. Amelia insisted on coming too, determined to support him. The boardroom at Winston Gable's Manhattan headquarters was a testament to the company's wealth: sleek black marble floors, panoramic city views, and an elongated mahogany conference table. Edgar sat near the head of the table, flanked by a few directors who shared his ambitions. Others regarded Thomas with genuine concern. "We're worried about the future," a senior director began. "Your injuries are severe, and while we wish you the best in your recovery, the business cannot remain in limbo." Thomas feigned a trembling grip on the arms of his wheelchair, voice faltering. "I understand your concerns, but I can assure you, I've been overseeing major decisions from home. We have a capable team." "That's not enough," Edgar snapped. "We need clarity. It might be time for you to step down as CEO, transfer operational control. I'm willing to fill the role, temporarily, of course." Thomas felt Amelia's hand slip onto his shoulder, offering silent support. He took a measured breath, recalling how he wanted to push this entire scenario to see if Amelia would defend him. "I'm not ready to hand over the company. I'm still perfectly able to—" "You sure?" Edgar's eyes flicked between Thomas and Amelia. "You're strapped to that wheelchair. Can't even attend half the calls. How long can Winston Gable stagnate?" The tension was thick. Amelia's voice cut through the silence. Thomas is not a broken man. He's actively working every single day to keep this company running. If you need proof, check the financial statements. Winston Gable has yet to miss a single target. You act like he's incompetent just because he can't stand on his own 2 feet. That's prejudice, Edgar. The board members murmured, taken aback by her fervor. Edgar's lips curled. It's not prejudice, it's pragmatism. Thomas cleared his throat, playing up the trembling in his hands. Give me 2 more months. If I'm not significantly better, if the company truly suffers, then we'll revisit the discussion. After a pause, the board begrudgingly agreed to revisit the matter in 8 weeks. Edgar, though displeased, knew a direct coup would be unpopular. Amelia wheeled Thomas out of the meeting, her composure unbroken, but once they were alone in a hallway, tears rimmed her eyes. "This is so unfair," she whispered shakily. "You built this company from the ground up, and now they want to strip you of it just because you're injured. It makes me furious." Thomas felt an agonizing twist of guilt. She really cares. But the test had to continue, didn't it? 2 months stretched into a blur of therapy sessions, corporate battles, and emotional nights. Through it all, Amelia stayed by Thomas's side. Meanwhile, Marcus kept popping up, messaging her about art events or simply offering an ear to listen. Though Amelia maintained her boundaries, Thomas watched her frustration grow. The daily grind of caring for him was wearing her down. One evening, after a particularly grueling physical therapy session, Thomas pretended to have no appetite and locked himself away in his study. Amelia tried coaxing him out, but he insisted he needed time alone. In truth, he found it increasingly hard to keep up the charade. He needed space to maintain his carefully orchestrated act. He sat at his massive desk, a gift from Bill Gates after a philanthropic collaboration, ironically engraved with the words, "Honesty in all things," and found the motto mocking him now. The door behind him creaked open, and Amelia entered with a tray of steaming soup. "Thomas, you need to eat," she pleaded. He spun around, letting his wheelchair's motor hum softly. "I'm not hungry." She set the tray down. "This is all because of the therapy session. I know it's painful, but we need to keep trying." He stared at her, feeling the weight of the lie crushing him. Part of him wanted to stand up right there, reveal the entire ruse, and beg for forgiveness. But fear kept him glued to the chair. "Amelia, do you ever wonder if our life would be simpler without all this?" he asked quietly. Her eyes flickered with concern. "Don't say that. You're my husband. No matter what, we'll get through it." She paused, biting her lower lip. "Though, sometimes I wonder if you really trust me. You shut me out. You keep so much inside. I want to help you, but you won't let me." Thomas averted his eyes, unable to respond truthfully. Amelia sighed, moving closer to place a hand on his shoulder. "Eat, please. I need you to stay strong, for me." With that, she left him alone, the tray of soup untouched. He bowed his head in anguish, feeling more trapped by the day. It was a week after that emotional evening when the first crack in Thomas's carefully built lie appeared. During a routine physical therapy session at home, where Amelia normally watched intently, the therapist had stepped out to take a call. Amelia was delayed in the hallway talking to the housekeeper. Alone in the room, Thomas tried to shift his wheelchair closer to pick up a dropped water bottle, forgetting for a moment to maintain his facade. He stood up, without hesitation, without struggle, and walked the 2 steps to pick up the bottle. Then he froze. Heart pounding, he looked up to see Amelia standing at the door, eyes wide as saucers. Silence. The water bottle clattered from his suddenly numb fingers. Thomas dropped back into the wheelchair hastily, trying to think of an excuse, but no words came. Thomas, Amelia stammered, tears filling her eyes. You can stand?" He was caught. All those months of elaborate deceit. Her expression morphed from confusion to betrayal. "What is this? Why have you been pretending?" He stammered. I can explain, Amelia. Let me." But she was already stepping back, horror clouding her features. "You lied to me," she whispered. "You let me believe all of this. You let me cry for you, sacrifice my life for you." Her voice rose, echoing off the walls of the therapy room. Thomas reached for her, but she recoiled. "Amelia, please." "No." She turned and fled, tears streaming down her face. The moment Thomas had dreaded had arrived, and he felt his heart plummet. All that remained was the devastation he had inflicted. For hours, Amelia locked herself in the bedroom, refusing to speak to Thomas. He could hear her sobbing behind the door, and every muffled cry was a knife in his chest. Susan approached him hesitantly, having heard the commotion. "What happened?" she asked, alarmed. "She saw," he murmured, his head in his hands. "She knows everything now." Susan covered her mouth in shock. "Oh, Thomas." "I don't know how to fix this," he admitted, voice shaking. "I was so afraid of losing her, and I've done exactly that." Eventually, as dusk settled, Thomas gathered his courage and knocked on the bedroom door. "Amelia?" he called softly. "May I come in?" He heard a shuffle, then Amelia's voice, hoarse. "It's unlocked." He entered, trying to maintain his balance as though he still needed the wheelchair. She sat on the bed, eyes swollen, a suitcase half-packed beside her. His stomach dropped at the sight. "You're leaving?" he asked, his voice trembling. She laughed bitterly. "What else would you expect me to do after discovering my husband faked a life-altering injury to test my loyalty?" The anger in her eyes was laced with heartbreak. Thomas sank onto a chair, burying his face in his hands. "I know I don't deserve it, but please let me explain." Amelia folded her arms. "Go ahead." He told her everything. His father's warnings, his own insecurities, how their whirlwind romance terrified him. He'd never had someone like her who didn't seem swayed by money and power. He explained the elaborate setup, the hospital ruse, the fear that she might leave him if he wasn't the robust, powerful man she married. The words poured out in a torrent of guilt and desperation. When he finished, Amelia was trembling, tears running down her cheeks. "You thought I was a gold digger," she whispered. "Is that the woman you think I am?" Thomas shook his head vigorously. No, I'm sorry. I let my fears get the better of me. I love you, Amelia. I've never questioned that. But I questioned whether you truly loved me. I was wrong." She wiped her eyes, pain etched into every line of her face. "I gave up everything to take care of you. My job, my peace of mind. I put you first. And it was all for a lie." Thomas bowed his head. "I'm sorry. I would do anything to take it back." For a moment, Amelia just stared at him, silent. Then she turned her attention back to the suitcase, roughly shoving more clothes inside. His chest tightened. "Please, don't go. I need time," she whispered, zipping the suitcase. "Time to think, away from here." He swallowed hard. "I understand, but please know, I truly love you." Amelia took a shaky breath, looking at him as though seeing a stranger. "I did love you, Thomas. I just don't know if I can anymore." With that, she left the penthouse, leaving Thomas alone in the echo of his betrayal. Amelia found refuge in a modest hotel across town, booking a suite under a different name to avoid prying eyes. She ignored the buzzing phone, the endless texts and voicemails from Thomas. She needed clarity, time to process the enormity of the deception. Marcus, sensing her distress, reached out again. "If you need a friend, I'm here," he messaged. Reluctantly, she agreed to meet for dinner. Confusion tore at her. The man she'd loved, her husband, had spun a monstrous lie. What did that say about their marriage? Their future? Marcus took her to a quiet Italian restaurant in Soho, giving her space to speak. She told him, in halting words, about Thomas's deception, the heartbreak, and her own sense of betrayal. Marcus listened sympathetically, reaching out to hold her hand. "I hate seeing you like this," he said gently. "You deserve someone who trusts you completely." Amelia pulled her hand away. "I'm not looking to jump into anyone else's arms. I'm just lost." Marcus nodded, signifying he understood. Yet beneath his kind exterior there was a flicker in his eyes that suggested he was ready to fill any void Thomas's betrayal might have created. Meanwhile, Thomas retreated into guilt and regret. He tried sending Amelia flowers, heartfelt letters, voice messages, anything to communicate his remorse. Each day she remained absent. He felt his world collapse a bit more. Susan quietly urged him to take a break from the daily mania of Winston Gable, to focus on repairing what he'd broken. But, ironically, throwing himself into work became his only way to cope. Yet the board's ultimatum still loomed. Thomas needed to demonstrate his leadership or face removal. With Edgar circling like a hawk, waiting to pounce, Thomas had to find a balance between saving his company and saving his marriage. After a week of silence, Amelia finally returned one morning to collect a few more belongings. Thomas, alerted by security, rushed to meet her in the foyer. She looked exhausted, her eyes ringed with dark circles. "Amelia," he said, voice tentative, I'm relieved to see you." She stood stiffly. "I'm only here for some clothes, that's it." He nodded, stepping aside. "Of course, but can we at least talk, please?" She sighed, looking torn. Eventually she relented, and they sat in the living room, the same space where they'd once spent cozy evenings watching sunsets. Now, an uneasy tension filled the air. Thomas spoke first. "I know what I did was unforgivable, but I need you to know I don't expect forgiveness. I only want you to understand how sorry I am." She stared at her hands. "Why didn't you just talk to me? Why go to such extremes?" He ran a hand through his hair, exhaling shakily. "I was afraid words weren't enough. My father's warnings about gold diggers, the pressure, the vulnerability, my mind went to a dark place. I planned this crazy test, and I got lost in it. I never intended to hurt you so deeply." Amelia's voice wavered. "You made me believe you were paralyzed. I gave up so much to be there for you. I felt so guilty if I even took a moment away. And all along, you were lying." Thomas closed his eyes, tears escaping. "It was a horrible thing to do. I wish I could turn back time." She swallowed, tears glistening. "Thomas, I loved you with everything I had, but now I'm not sure I know who you are." Silence settled like a cold weight. Thomas reached for her hand, but she pulled away. "I still need time." He nodded. "Take all the time you need. Just please know that I will wait for you, no matter how long." She grabbed her things and left, leaving Thomas feeling more uncertain than ever about whether their marriage would survive. The day of reckoning arrived for Winston Gable. A special board session convened to determine Thomas's fate as CEO. He knew he had to show his strength, both physically and metaphorically. With unwavering resolve, he arrived at the meeting walking on his own 2 feet, no wheelchair, no crutches. His staff looked on, bewildered. Some gasped. Edgar's jaw dropped in shock. Before the board, Thomas confessed that he had in fact recovered enough to walk. He left out the part about faking the injury from the start, carefully shaping the narrative. The therapy worked better than we ever dreamed. The directors murmured among themselves, a wave of relief, tinged with confusion, rushing through them. Thomas took control of the conference, presenting a bold strategic plan for the next quarter, demonstrating the full capacity of his leadership. His presence alone, standing there, seemed to rejuvenate the group's confidence. Though Edgar tried to sow doubts, claiming Thomas's recovery was suspiciously swift, the board seemed relieved to have their proven leader back in command. In a unanimous vote, they confirmed Thomas would remain CEO, though they requested more transparency in the future regarding his health. The official statements would laud a miraculous recovery spurred by advanced medical intervention. When the meeting adjourned, Thomas exited into a corridor with Susan. She grasped his arm, tears of relief in her eyes. "You did it. The board believes in you again." He nodded, but his gaze was distant. "The real victory is Amelia, if I can win her back." Thomas learned that Amelia had moved into a small apartment near the gallery where she used to work. Through a friend of a friend, he discovered she was trying to find normalcy, possibly returning to her art career. He also learned that Marcus was consistently hovering around, offering companionship. The thought churned Thomas's stomach with jealousy. Desperate, he arranged a heartfelt gesture. One afternoon, Amelia received an invitation via courier, attached to a fresh bouquet of lilies, her favorite flowers. The note read, "I know I can't fix the past, but please allow me one evening to show you the truth of my heart. Tomorrow, 7 p.m., at the Arcadia Gallery. If you choose to come, I'll be waiting." Amelia stared at the note, torn between anger and lingering love. Finally, out of curiosity and the faint hope for closure, she decided to go. That evening, dressed in a simple black dress, she arrived at the Arcadia Gallery. The lights were dim, and the space had been closed to the public. The only illumination came from strategically placed spotlights on various canvases around the main room. Amelia's breath caught as she recognized some of the paintings. Thomas had apparently commissioned local artists to create a series depicting scenes from their life together. Their wedding in the south of France, the day they moved to New York, their philanthropic mission to Africa, the quiet dinners in the penthouse, and more. At the center stood Thomas, dressed in an elegant suit, eyes filled with contrition and longing. No wheelchair, no charade, just the real Thomas, raw and vulnerable. He approached slowly. "I know words aren't enough, so I tried to create a space that tells our story, good and bad. I need you to see that everything we shared was real, except for my stupid, misguided lie." Amelia's eyes filled with tears as she moved from one painting to the next, each memory pulling at her heart. She finally turned to him, expression conflicted. "This is beautiful, Thomas, but it doesn't erase what you did." He nodded solemnly. "I know. I just want you to know I'm willing to do anything to make this right. If you want me to sign over assets, if you want to step away, I won't fight you. I just love you." She swallowed, tears escaping. "I don't want your assets. I never did. I wanted you. Someone I thought I could trust." Thomas reached for her hands, and this time she didn't pull away. "Will you let me rebuild that trust, even if it takes a lifetime?" Silence hung in the air. Finally, she inhaled deeply. "Trust is earned through honesty. You broke it, so it'll be a long road. But maybe I'm willing to see if we can heal." A burst of relief shone in his eyes. He moved closer, gently pulling her into an embrace. She let him hold her, tears dampening his shoulder. It wasn't the passionate fairy tale reconciliation of old. Too much had happened. But it was a start, a glimmer of hope that their marriage, bruised and battered, might yet survive. In the weeks that followed, Thomas and Amelia embarked on couples counseling. For the first time, they confronted their respective fears head-on, Amelia's fear of abandonment and Thomas's deep-rooted trust issues. The sessions were intense, often leaving them drained, but through shared commitment, they inched closer to each other. Meanwhile, Winston Gable stabilized under Thomas's consistent leadership. Edgar, thwarted in his coup attempt, simmered in the background. The official line was that Thomas's accident had led to partial paralysis, but improved miraculously with advanced therapy, and the public accepted the story. Investors regained confidence, and the press moved on to other scandals. For Amelia, regaining trust was a daily challenge. She set boundaries, insisting Thomas be open about every aspect of his life. She asked for a thorough understanding of how the ruse had been orchestrated, who had been involved, and why. At times, the details revolted her. The knowledge that multiple staff members had played along stung, even if they were just following orders. Yet, beneath her anger, she still found the same compassionate heart that had once fallen for Thomas Winston. She saw his sorrow, his genuine remorse, and his earnest desire to never repeat the mistake. Slowly, a cautious affection began to re-emerge, interlaced with lingering pain. One afternoon, Thomas surprised her again, this time more modestly. He showed up at her small apartment with a picnic basket and a warm smile. "Will you let me take you to Central Park for lunch?" he asked softly, apprehensive that she might reject him. She studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Okay." They strolled through the park, hand in hand, quiet for a time. Eventually, Thomas guided her to a secluded patch near the Bethesda fountain. There, they set up a simple picnic, sandwiches, fruit salad, sparkling water. Amelia looked around at the vibrant fall colors. "Remember the day we first came to New York together? You whisked me away in your limousine, but we ended up walking through this very spot." He smiled, recalling. "You said the city's art was found everywhere, not just in galleries." She returned a small smile. "That was a good day." Thomas reached out, gently tucking a stray lock of hair behind her ear. "Can we make more good days? I want to rebuild our life, however long it takes." Amelia's eyes glimmered with a mix of hope and residual heartbreak. "We can try." Over the next several months, Thomas and Amelia navigated a delicate path of reconciliation. He relinquished some control at Winston Gable, delegating tasks to a team of trusted executives, allowing himself time to focus on his marriage. They reconnected with the joys of everyday life, cooking together, watching old movies, visiting art exhibitions. The lies and betrayals didn't vanish, but they slowly receded as open communication became their foundation. Amelia returned to her passion for art, arranging a philanthropic exhibit sponsored by Winston Gable that showcased emerging talents, offering them grants and resources. This time it wasn't overshadowed by grand illusions or hidden motives. Thomas supported her wholeheartedly, donating generously to the cause. Marcus, for his part, tried to remain in Amelia's life as a friend, yet sensing her and Thomas's renewed bond, he respectfully distanced himself, focusing on his own career. Amelia appreciated his concern, but realized her heart was still with the man she married. The man who was deeply flawed, yes, but also deeply repentant. Finally, in a quiet, understated gesture, Thomas asked Amelia to renew their vows in a small ceremony on a beach in Montauk. No paparazzi, no business tycoons, just close friends, immediate family, and the gentle sound of waves. He stood before her, hands shaking with emotion, and spoke words that came from the depths of his soul. "I stand here without any disguise," he began. "No more secrets, no more tests. Only honesty and love. Amelia, you showed me the meaning of devotion, and though I failed to trust it, you stayed true to yourself. Today, I promise to rebuild the trust I broke, to honor you with the respect you deserve, and to love you without reservation or fear." Tears slipped down Amelia's cheeks. She took a deep breath, letting the ocean breeze calm her. "Thomas, I loved you once, purely. Then you broke my trust. But your remorse and your dedication to rebuilding what was lost has shown me that even our darkest moments can lead to new light. I vow to walk beside you, hand in hand, honest in all things, faithful in all seasons, as we forge a better future, together." They exchanged rings again, simple bands engraved with each other's initials. As they sealed their vows with a kiss, the gathered witnesses erupted in gentle applause. Overhead, the sun cast a warm glow on the ocean's surface, as if blessing their second chance. In that moment, Thomas felt a wave of gratitude. He still carried the weight of guilt for the pain he'd caused, yet he also felt the unmistakable spark of hope that comes when broken hearts begin to heal, and love, tested by deception, emerges stronger than before. In the end, Thomas Winston's shocking test nearly destroyed the love he so desperately wanted to protect. Yet through heartbreak, confession, and remorse, the wounded marriage found a second chance, rebuilt on honesty, communication, and genuine devotion. Amelia's strength and Thomas's repentance illuminated a profound truth. Real love isn't about perfection, but the courage to face our flaws, heal from pain, and choose forgiveness. Though their path to redemption was fraught with drama and doubt, they stepped forward together, proving that no obstacle is insurmountable for a love willing to fight its darkest fears. If this story moved you, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us bring you more riveting real-life dramas and inspiring tales of love's power to endure against all odds. Don't miss our next story. Stay tuned for even more twists, turns, and triumphant resolutions. Thank you for watching.